everything is instant. Oh, you're climbing Aconcagua, is it tomorrow? Well, no. It's in 2 years, or it's in next year, or it's in 3 years time. So it's like, you gotta give yourself time.
Getting into the discomfort zone, I think,
Yes.
I mean, we know is important, and there's a great book by Michael Easter, The Comfort Crisis, that I've promoted before, which I think is great in how putting yourself in those discomfort, positions.
Speed work had helped me get my arms back in motion. Okay. So connect my neurological, I've noticed that I had a delay in certain things, like delayed response with my arms and my legs.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kurkowski. I'm so grateful for you to join me today. So today I am joined by Mia Farrow, who is doing something pretty epic this year. Mia is an endurance athlete and a mountain climber who's on a mission right now in training for the Aconcagua 360, a world record attempt of scaling the second highest mountain in the world and back down in less than 2 days. For the Mirage's world-class climber, this is usually a 3-week venture, but Mia is making an attempt in less than 48 hours. She's only the third woman ever to attempt this. So I first heard about Mia when I spoke with Toshner, who's currently training her in strength for this event. And after hearing about her and what she's doing, I knew I wanted to connect with her on the show. All right, enjoy this episode. If you like it, please give a review. Make sure to subscribe and catch all new episodes that drop every single week here. Help spread the message of strength for me. Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. Now let's get on with the show.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Mia, thank you so much for taking time. It's like I said, I've been excited to talk to you since I got a chance to hear about you from Derek. So this is really awesome, and I'm really excited to chat. Thank you so much.
Hello, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So you just told me the whole story of when you first did this event, which is amazing, which we'll go into briefly, but for a little context, when I talked with Toshner on the podcast and his all-terrain program, he brought up the work he was doing with you and the event that you're doing in the world record, which I'm going to butcher the name again. I've been practicing it, but Aconcagua 360.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Which is essentially, this is, to give a little bit more detail, I'll have you probably explain it a lot better, but this is the second highest peak in the world, where a lot of people go into a summit for 3 weeks of doing this with the challenge. You're doing this in like a 2-day 2-day period, which is absolutely amazing, to do. So I'm excited to hear about this event. I know the next attempt is coming up pretty soon for you. You're about 6 weeks out, so you got to be super pumped, excited. So most of the work's probably done by now, right? Now it's almost just like, final touches and just getting rolling from there. Is that about right?
Pretty much, yes. It's podcast and mental training, if anything.
Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah. So, well, to kind of bring this in, I'd like to, if you could, I want to ask you why you're doing this, because I think it's such an interesting thing. Not so many people would gear up and do this, but to start with, if you can explain exactly what is, the 360, what are you going to be doing? And then we'll kind of get into some of the details.
Sure. Well, Aconcagua 360 is the longest endurance event on this mountain. And like you just explained, it's one of the 7 summits, and it's the second highest after Mount Everest of the 7 summits. So it's at close to 23,000 feet and close to 7,000 meters. Each starts from, there are 2 gates at this national park, Aconcagua, and the summit. So this event starts at one gate, that's 2,500 meters, goes up to the summit, 7,000. You come off the mountain to the other gate, and then you make the loop between the gates, hence why it's called the 360. So you make this full loop of the mountain touching the summit, and that's why it's called Aconcagua 360. There are other events on this mountain that are called short ascents and short FKTs, which are just on one side of the mountain, or maybe base camp to the summit. And they've been, done by Kilian Jornets of the world, and, Karl Egelöf and Fernanda Maciel. Those are the kind of winners of UTMB endurance runners. And, but this particular Aconcagua 360, it's only been attempted by 2 women so far. Well, three of us, I guess. and successfully summited by, accomplished by one woman, and maybe by 5 or 6, just a handful of men.
Okay.
So
Now, when you say accomplished, is that just completing it, or is it again in a specific time that you have to do it?
So yes, accomplished meaning yes. She's Sunny Stroller holds the current record, so to speak, for Aconcagua 360, which is about 47 hours.
Okay.
And I believe that Sonia Procopio has attempted it and possibly done it in 39 hours, but she had a pacer with her.
Mm-hmm.
And what you really need to have is, the GPS statistics and photos from the summit, because you're going alone. Mostly she had a pacer on this occasion, but you do have to have, because it's not an organized race, so you don't have necessarily, people kind of waiting for you at certain places
Sure,
to take
yeah.
photos of you or anything. So if you don't have the GPS, they won't really accept it. And the Argentinian government is quite strict with everything. So even Sunny, I don't think she holds the world record, because there's, an official process to submit the application and submit a few pieces of evidence. But she does hold that FKT unofficial record, which is 47 hours. When I attempted it, I was going for 35 hours. And because I'm more of a runner, I think Sunny's really much better at mountaineering, and she's an endurance runner and adventurer. But I had a little more background with running, and I thought I could complete this faster. So anyway, we're really good friends, and we talk about this and we exchange a lot of information.
Oh, I'm sure,
and,
Yeah, there's not too many of you. It's like you almost have to be friends just by association, right? Just from attempting it.
Yeah, and it's really good because we strategize together, and Sunny's very open about it, because she helps women get on the mountain too. She's really pro women being on the mountain and doing these adventures, and it's been a great experience so far.
It's interesting because, with a running background, I'm sure with endurance, that's definitely a big thing. But also, like, getting up that high, I'm like, how much running are you doing at that mark? Like, is that a pace that you can keep?
Well,
or I'm sure this partly like trekking at some point, right?
It is very interesting, yes, when we do call it a run, because endurance at high altitude is really all about speed hiking. And when you really get to that 6,000 meters, it's really hard to explain, but it's literally walking, like trying to walk as fast as possible. But you're covering like 1 mile in maybe 2 to 3 hours. That's
crazy. Yeah.
It's like you really have to focus, and there's certain strategies we use. We count to 5. You start like counting to 10. You go 1, 2. You go 10 steps, and you got to stop. And then you got count 10 steps. You stop, and then you count 5 steps, and you stop. And as you get higher, it's literally boils down to 3 steps and stop, and 3 steps. So it's there's a lot of strategy that goes into this, but it's not sprinting to the summit. It's not running to the summit. It's enduring, really getting to the summit as quickly as possible, which is hard because because of the altitude sickness, and you can come on at any time, during this event. And you can't even start running that fast. You have this kind of opportunity to run, say, from the gate to the base camp, which is 40 kilometers at, pretty manageable altitude. But you really have to pace yourself. Yeah. Because if you go too fast and you get so tired, you risk stopping yourself. And then you risk, feeling tired and not being able to continue. And then, you jeopardize your pace as you go, further along. So it's like a very, there's an endurance event where you have to pace yourself, of course. This is like almost a double, endurance event where you have to really focus on pacing yourself. Yeah. Because a lot of elite athletes, I don't know if you know, but a lot of elite athletes, when they go to train at high altitude, not just 3,000 meters, at like higher altitude, 4 and 5, they actually can't do it because they have this fast twitch and propensity to go so fast, right? Because it's just what they're used to.
Right.
And they get altitude sickness and they're off the mountain. A lot of them have been hospitalized, actually. And if you read the previous experiences of these professional athletes, like their first attempt was all about, they just got altitude sickness. They ended up in a hospital and they had to come back the following year to do it. Fernanda Maciel, good example.
That's crazy. Yeah. I remember I've had some people who are from Colorado area, from Lake Tahoe, which the base of it is higher. And they talk about, training at that altitude. I'm like, yeah, well, 8,000 feet is, I'm sure, something, but you start getting to 15,000 and plus from there. It's like, you're in a whole different ballpark.
Yes. Yeah. So I was lucky, or I actually, you can kind of go through these exams or like scans and see if you're a responder to altitude or you're not. Like they can actually tell. So when I was 30 back in the day, I did that, and I used to live in the US, and I trained in Colorado, and I spent a lot of time in for teeners in Leadville and running and all of that, and I respond really well to high altitude.
That's what Derek was telling me about. You just respond better to high altitude.
It's just something that, I had. And at that time, I was really a zone 1, zone 2 athlete. Like I just focused because I had a full-on career. I was in investment banking. I worked long hours. I, had 100-hour work week. And all I could do is literally walk to work or walk. I lived in San Francisco, which was luckily super hilly and super awesome to prepare you for all of this. And then on the weekends, if they would give me a weekend off, I would literally run for 4 or 5 hours, but slow. It was like run, walk, slow running, but hilly, super hilly. And I skied a lot. I snowboarded, even in my early 20s in the States. And so that was all kind of really good. But backtracking even, earlier than that, I was brought up in a family that hiked a lot.
Okay.
My first endurance hike with my mom and dad I was 7 or 8 years old when we were covering 20 kilometers. So let me put it in miles. It was probably anywhere between 12 to 18 miles.
Oh yeah.
As a kid. Okay. So every Sunday, this was non-negotiable for my parents.
Oh, wow.
and let me tell you, as a kid, we didn't like this.
Yeah, really.
It's not like we were like, hey, Mom and Dad, let's go. But this was something we did.
Well, you got little legs when you're 7, 8 years old, going 12 miles up mountains. Yeah.
And this run, we had a national park close to our house, and, it was only, it was nothing big. We didn't have big mountains or anything, but when you're a kid, everything looks big, right?
Absolutely.
Even the smallest of the hills, it's like a big. So now when I go back, I'm like, oh my gosh, this was just a little hill, when I look at it. But when I was a kid, that was a big mountain for me. So anyway, it kind of really goes back to when I was a kid, and running was always a part of my life because, I played basketball since I was 5, probably. My sister and I were on my brother's team, and because they didn't have girls' team. So, we played soccer. We played, I have a multi-sport background. So I played, tennis a lot. I played, volleyball. So pretty much, but mostly basketball. Basketball was kind of the focus for us.
Did you do track and field too? Did you do running as well, specific running?
Interestingly, no. So
really?
Interestingly, no, because we didn't have track and field. I grew up in a small town, it's a village, in Serbia, and we didn't, but we had they call them fire trails here, just dirt roads. And I remember our school was always in the process of, we'll build track and field. We'll build, it's kind of in the plans.
Right.
One of those schools that is 10 years from now. And I'm thinking in 10 years, I won't be here.
Right.
But the ground was there. So we always ran on this like dirt road and kind of resembled track and field, but it wasn't an official thing. And, but we competed. We were pretty good. My sister and I have a twin sister who was like a super athlete.
Okay.
I was very academic. And she was a super athlete, but I competed, like we were really good together.
Right.
And then I had an older brother, he's like 18 months older. So he was like a super athlete, super academic, everything, right? The whole package. And I just competed with him too a lot. But anyway, I ran a little bit in school, but that wasn't my focus. I was just really good at it. And I have to say, the most important thing, when I look back now on my life, like in my childhood and everything, the best thing my parents did was they never owned a car. And this is such a simple fact, but it's such it had a profound impact on how we were raised, because we walked to school, we ran to school, we walked to the grocery store, we ran everywhere. So like we even had, as kids, like you had that competition, like, oh, is it going to take us 10 minutes to school? Like, or can we do it in like 8 minutes? Or is it going to be 25 minutes? Is it going to be like 23? So because I had my sister in the same class, we would constantly compete and we would say, okay, let's see. So it was like a continuous competition event, for us growing up. But that's literally like, and my mom and dad wouldn't say, okay, we'll drive the car to this, parking area and then we'll hike. No, we had to walk from our house. It
started from the front door.
Like it's like the entire life. And I never really thought about it until I actually moved to the US. And I didn't own a car because I lived in a big city. So I could, I walked around in San Francisco. I actually had my first car when I was maybe 26, just because I had to commute, to, a certain area. I kind of moved away from the city and, I had to for 1 year. And then I got rid of the car because I noticed I was losing my, kind of everything.
Just the drive. Yeah. That's such an interesting point. It's, I remember when I lived in Boston, and we didn't have cars, we just walked everywhere. And then even a few years ago, I realized like you're barely moving throughout the day and just started getting out and walking more and just making it a part. It's still such the most underrated thing for overall health, just to move around. And it is, I've talked about it with quite a few coaches of, we can overcomplicate so many of the detailed programs and nutrition where it's like just getting up and going for a walk for a couple miles. And you just make that, like with that, like growing up with it, it's not even like, should I walk or not? It's like, no, if you want to get to school, you got to, put on your shoes and you better get stepping. Yeah.
And it's constant, like even in high school, like when we had to take the bus to go to the big city, right, to attend school and all of that, like you had to catch the bus. You missed that bus. You missed the start of the school.
Right.
So it was like, you really had to and planning was a big part of it. So you had to learn how to plan, and it's just really good in a lot of ways. And I look at my kids, and we try to walk to school and, they're getting bigger, but, it's so important. Like everybody even now asks me, oh, your kids must be really good runners. I said, no, we walk.
Yeah.
I try to walk a lot with them because that's how you build your, and my little one, my 5-year-old, actually loves walking barefoot. Like she rarely wears shoes. It's a big deal. Her starting preschool because she has to wear shoes all the time, right, in school. And she doesn't want to. And I have to, oftentimes I have to just pack them inside her backpack and, they put them on in school because, teachers do their thing and like, okay, Sophie, you have to, but it's great. And I love it. And that's what we do. We walk a lot. Yeah. And we hike a lot. And I kind of that's the biggest lesson I took from my childhood. The parents, that's what they did really well with us. And I kind of do it with my children. Yeah. And I make a conscious effort for all of us to do that. And it's good.
I think it is. I think it's such a good lesson. It can't be overstated enough of how important that is. And to put it around just a family dynamic, I think is so
Yes.
important, that's so cool, that you're doing. The barefoot thing's even a whole nother thing that we could go down the rabbit hole on. I remember when I talked with Graham Tuttle, his barefoot sprinting is just unbelievable type stuff.
Yes.
So yeah. So I wanted to ask you, so the first time that you did this ascent and you did the 360 and you said 35 hours was the goal. Now I know kind of took a little nap at the top, which I'll probably have you go over again, but were you on pace for that before kind of that whole thing happened?
I was pretty on pace. I was pretty good, but I also had a few setbacks. Like I would stop at certain camps and I had to actually, change my socks and my pants because I fell into this river, which was kind of not planned, but it happened. And another lesson, and a lesson in how much you need to carry, with you, and what you need to put in this little pack that, you don't want to overpack. You got to be very specific, right? Yeah. And, a bit of food, so it was just a great lesson for me. And I was on pace, but I've noticed when I stopped at certain camps, I couldn't move fast enough to get out of those camps to move forward. So I was very lucky. I had Grijalles Expeditions, which is like a biggest expedition company in Argentina, helped me. They have these big domes at the base camp where it's kind of like just a shelter, right? And you can kind of go in and protect yourself. So I just wanted to, change my clothes. And luckily they had a couple of people up waiting for me at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. at one of those camps. And they gave me some hot soup. Okay. As I was changing, I've noticed I wasn't really executing this as quickly as I probably wanted to. I was feeling very cold. I was feeling very tired. And I couldn't make myself get out of the shelter quickly enough. So I said, okay, well, I have 45 minutes and these are the things you need to do. You kind of like, you want to eat, you want to change, and, you want to pack. You want to maybe close your eyes for just literally 5 minutes and you want to move. Right? Okay. Because the longer you stay, the longer you just feel comfortable and you're
just
like,
get that little zone. Yeah.
Really good. Yeah, I'll probably stay here. So I've noticed that wasn't good. And that's okay. I wasn't like panicking because, always in the back of my mind, I was like, I just had 3 months to prepare for this. Let's not expect miracles. Right? Okay. But I want to see, and I was just kind of registering things as I was moving along. And I said, okay, this is something I really need to work on because I used to be mentally more, like I felt stronger and better at this, but now I just feel a little comfortable. And I was like, oh, I don't really like this, but so, you just gotta it's something you really have to work on. And then I would get out of that camp and it was an hour. It wasn't 45 minutes. I would get to 6,000 meters, another camp, and I felt really, really hungry. And they had this fire, or I don't even know what it was. It was just really, oh no, it wasn't a fire. Listen to me. It wasn't a fire. It was just one of those jet boils, right? One of the guides was waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning and he was making, tea for the rest of the camp. And I happened to, show up and he's like, oh, do you want some food? I said, absolutely. And I sat down and that warmth I just felt like, oh my gosh, I could just sleep for us. Because at altitude, it's really hard to explain, but you just get so tired. You just and you lose that power to the control over yourself. You really do. You're you really have to say, okay, wake up. You got to do this. And you got to continue telling yourself, stay on track, and get out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm not really hungry. I inhaled 6 pieces of bread with jam. I don't even know what they had, cheese and things. And Sunny was actually there at that camp with her group, and she walked in to get a photo of me because I needed to have photos and, to say that I was here. She took a photo. There was a feast, this whole picnic in front of me that I didn't even realize. And I was just eating. I was
Yeah.
like, thank God they were there. But another thing that I wasn't really thinking about as I was, setting up this endurance run is how hungry I would be at certain altitude and how much you actually really needed to eat.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really funny
Yeah.
looking back. I looked at that photo. I always laugh about it because I was like, oh, I didn't eat much. And they're like, man, you ate a whole loaf of bread.
All right. Well, it's so funny too, when like we take some of these comforts that we have so for granted and just every day. And then all of a sudden, when you're outside of that, all of a sudden those little comforts, like I always would crack up. I remember being a kid and me and some friends, like you get caught in a rainstorm, like a freezing cold, like kind of summer rain. And you get home and that shower is the greatest shower in the world because you've been so uncomfortable. And it's like, you never realize how good a shower could feel, or when you're so hungry, just a piece of bread with some jam on it is like a Thanksgiving dinner. It's like the farther away you are from your regular comfort, the more. So yeah, that's probably something like realizing you're going to have these discomforts that are coming up, and it's going to change your mentality when you get up there.
Yes. So that whole Aconcagua 360 is about like high level of discomfort and high level of simplicity. It's not like I can now have someone come with a van or a car and meet me halfway and bring me all this food, right? Or say, okay, well, I endured now 300 kilometers or say whatever, 70 kilometers. And now I'm going to have this rest stop and all of this stuff will pop up and I'll be like, 3 Gatorades and this great feet and, like I have all the food that I need. No, it's so simple. It's really like, and then, I kept registering that back in my mind again. Okay, I got to like get better at feeling uncomfortable, and I'll have to like really train myself again to like be a little more uncomfortable, which, it's like, it's just simple stuff like cold showers even, or, like going for 2 or 3 days by yourself and just bringing minimal food, right? Or water, or, just little stuff like that, and sleeping, in the cold, or being in the cold and exposed to some uncomfortable things. But
are you doing some kind of artificial kind of setups like that at all to kind of prepare yourself for that? Or
yes, more or less. I mean, cold showers, yes. I don't do ice baths and all of that cold water immersion and stuff. I don't go to that extent. But every once in a while, I would test myself to see, how do I feel about a cold shower?
Right.
Especially after like long, like 4 or 5 hour days, in the mountains. And can I do this? And I can do it. You can really like, train yourself. But it is about a little bit of adversity, training. And I've had that growing up. I grew up in a lot of snow. I grew up in, snow up to my waist. We have to shovel snow every morning. And it's not hard for me to do. It's just, you just got to do it and remind yourself, because my life became a little comfortable when I had children.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
was that one of the motivations of why you wanted to attempt this? Because I mean, I think like getting into the discomfort zone, I think I mean, we know is important, and there's a great book by Michael Easter, The Comfort Crisis, that I've promoted before, which I think is great in how putting yourself in those discomfort, positions, uncomfortable positions is so important. But doing something like this, like is like another level from there. Like, was there something specific where you wanted to tackle this?
I wanted to grow. Yeah. And I've always had that growth mindset. I always had, goals and dreams. And this is yet another thing my parents did really well when, we were little. For Christmas, like, instead of writing to Santa what we wanted for toys, because mom and dad could never afford any toys, we had to write our dreams. Like, so since we were like very little, I remember this so vividly. My brother had a list. I want to become a doctor, or I want to, I want to go to the moon, like, which was unheard of, or like, and then of course we had the fun ones. I want to be an ice cream maker to make, real money, because we all liked ice cream, or little stuff like that. I wanted to be a stewardess because I wanted to travel the world.
Mhm.
And you kind of connect as a kid. Those are very simplistic like ways of connecting things. But like, you know, so mom said, okay, you want to travel the world. Do you think that only that, you know, specific job will get you there? Or can you do something else to get there, right? Can you be, say, in investment banking, make enough money, maybe save, and after, you know, 10 years, maybe you can take a year off and travel the world, which actually happened with me. So it kind of goes. So, but I always wanted to grow, and we were kind of not questioned by our parents, but like, you know, our parents wanted to give us options, you know, and it was really good. And that was kind of like always, we wanted to do more. I didn't want to stay in this village. I didn't want to live the life that my mom and dad lived. It was a good life. We grew up with so much love, you know, so much spiritual love, like that human capital. Mom and dad were there for us, right?
Yeah.
But we had no materialistic, like we were quite poor, right? So mom and dad kind of pushed for this, you know, be a lawyer, be a doctor. Those are kind of like the two things, you know, you can kind of have a good career, have a good life and a better life, right? Because they're like, this is all nice and fun, but it's actually quite hard. And we didn't see that hardship. Mom and dad never really shared, well, we don't really have money to do this. They would never tell us that.
Right.
So they always say, okay, let's go hike. And let's go, you know, let's go summit 2,000 meters when I was 10 years old. And I thought that was normal, you know, like, and that was a huge feat for us and gave us so much confidence, you know, like.
Oh yeah. Well, it's planting seeds that you don't even realize are in there until you realize it's all part of you.
Yes. And then, so I learned about Aconcagua when I was 11, because we were part of this mountaineering club all of a sudden. And people were going to the Himalayas and climbing K2 and Aconcagua. And I was like, wow, I want to do that.
Like, yeah, people can do this. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, this is great. This is not like, oh, I want to win that trophy. I'm like, past that. I want to do this. You know, I want to, because, you know, back then you only had a certain number of people doing it. It wasn't like masses, you know, like, and it wasn't just, oh, you have enough money, you can do this, right? No, it was like, and usually the country, you know, would sponsor you to do this. But in order to sponsor you, you had to, like, you know, show some, you know, like have these classifications and things, you know, that people would kind of look up to, like be a good student or athlete or something, that, and say, okay, she can do this, let's send her. Yeah. So I kind of thought, okay. And that's how you put these, like, you know, small steps together to get to that big step. And you're thinking, okay, well, in order to do that, you kind of backtrack and you go, I better go pour myself into a sport. I better go be a good athlete. I better, you know, I was an MVP, learning a point guard in basketball. Like, it wasn't really my passion, but I did it, you know, like, and then I better be a good student. So I was valedictorian. I was like straight A student. I was in top 1% in law school. Like I just had this obsession of being, you know, really awesome. Good and awesome at these other things. So they kind of look at you as a person and say, okay, we'll send her. Yeah. So what happened is that I got sponsored actually by my town to go and be an exchange student in America, which was my huge dream. So my dream was like to get to the States somehow. Okay. And mom and dad couldn't pay for it. So mom and I sat down and said, okay, well, let's go raise the funds and let's go send you. You're a good student, you're a great athlete, you can do this. And, you know, so they did it. And they just literally shipped me off. I was 19. And not to mention, you know, we had 3 wars during that time in Serbia, during my whole childhood. Like, I didn't know that my parents were battling 800% inflation. 800. Like, you know, that's like mom and dad get a paycheck, walk to the bank, and they get $2 because the inflation during that walk just like ate the whole pay. Like, so that was just so much going on that we had no idea about, right? The kids were just kind of, we knew. Well, you shield them. I mean, you shield your kids from those things. You don't want them to deal with it. Yeah. And, but they kind of instilled that belief you can do anything you put mind to. And as simple as that was, it was everything. to think that you have that support. Like it's so important, that emotional support. So I kind of grew up a little bit naive, thinking, gee, I can do anything, which is good. But, and I was sent to this big world, from a small village. It's not like I spoke English perfectly or anything, but I always had that, like, I can do this. Yeah. I can totally do this, and I'll do it. Yeah.
Well, there's something so powerful, I think, about the mountaineering that they did with you too, because, like instilling mental toughness in people, like that's a big topic that we talk about. But if you don't tie it to something physical, and actually see it, like you can say, I can do anything, or you can be anything you want and stuff. But then if everybody's just sitting around on the couch all day and doing it, it's like, you're not seeing that. It's just words in there. I heard this, I remember, from a podcast I listened to it. Yeah. I listened to John Danaher, the famous jiu-jitsu coach, that he talked about that with mental toughness. He's like, when you tie it to a physical ability, now all of a sudden you have a reference point of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So all of a sudden now you hear, I can do anything. And then right after that, you're lacing up your boots and going on a 20K, hike up the mountain. You're like, oh shit, I can do anything. Like, it's instilling those little things in there.
Absolutely. But, as a kid, we couldn't see that immediately. And this is it's really important to also think about that time effect, that I think it kind of really got lost in this instant culture. And, everything is instant. Oh, you're climbing Aconcagua, is it tomorrow? Well, no, it's in 2 years, or it's in next year, or is it, it's in 3 years time. So it's like, you gotta give yourself time, to grow this idea, to work on it. And this is when we talk about where the strength work comes in, and, my endurance training and everything, you have to put that process into place. And you got to allow yourself time to adapt mentally and physically, not just physically, mentally too. You got to be prepared, and you got to reevaluate things, say in a year time, do you really want to do this? When, the going gets tough. Yeah. Like when I was snatching, Derek would send me to go snatch for 60 minutes. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be fun.
That sounds like Derek.
I mean, I can't tell you, I've never in my life, I never thought I was going to be snatching 16 kilo kettlebells at 44 now, with 3 little kids.
That's awesome. That is
and he just tells me, Mia, go do this. And I can actually go and do it. But it took a year or two of adaptation,
no doubt.
And process to get there. So a lot of people think when you start training with someone, they just say, oh, well, when I started training with Pete, for example, which was before Derek, he worked on my breathing, and we would breathe for 20 minutes. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be interesting.
That's so cool. Yeah. Wow.
But it's such a slow and monotone, very boring process. But that was like me hiking with my parents. It was boring. It was for us kids. I was like, I want to go play with my friends. I want to go whatever, do something else. I don't want to be here with you, mom and dad, hiking for 20 kilometers. But put that together over time. That's 10 years, say, between 5 and 15, right? In my childhood, every Sunday, if you go, for me, if you tell me now, Mia, go for a week of just walking continuously, I could do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can't teach that. It's that's just experience over time, just overall.
Yeah.
You got to put in that time.
Yeah, so it's just a habit, but it's broken down, and but you gotta break it down. You have to look at those those little things that kind of build into big things, and those are those small habits. Everyone thinks it's something huge, radical they have to do. It's so small. It is so small, the small things, but you gotta link them together, and you gotta continue, doing them, and that consistency will produce the result. But it also takes years, not, hey, what do you have for me tomorrow? It's exactly. No, I'm not doing anything tomorrow.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I want to ask you about your strength work, because I know you work with Derek. I know Derek very well. How did you get involved in that? Was that your idea, or did one of your other coaches say you need to get into some strength work if you're going to make a run at this again?
Right. So I kind of took a lead on my whole training and kind of, I have a really good running coach, Matty Abel, who programs really well. He's very analytical, like too analytical for me. In the beginning, like I wasn't really that analytical. I knew how I felt. I went off a little bit of a heart rate, and I kind of just knew my body in general.
Sure.
So I knew what I could do and what I couldn't do. But Matty was good to keep me kind of like, in a good framework with the whole like numbers, and everything you get off your watches and things, right? And again, when I came off the mountain that first time and I attempted Aconcagua 360, there's so many things that I kind of wrote down, mental, toughness, strength work. So with strength, I realized, and I said, I need to get stronger. I really need to get stronger. And especially for high altitude, what happens at high altitude, you potentially could lose a lot of weight. But if you have a lot of muscle, like muscle can still hold on pretty, you can still hold on to that muscle, right? So I lost 10 kilos after this, even after the expedition, I lost like 8 kilos. I mean, you got to understand, we live on rice and bread and some meat, of course, but it's never enough because you're really working almost like double, if not triple, at altitude, right? So you're just continuously losing, weight. I can't wait to see what happens to Derek when he goes, because he's coming with me. But so anyway, so I lost a lot of weight, and then I knew at the time I didn't have enough muscle. I knew I could muscle through this, event, but I didn't have enough muscle on me, right? And I even noticed that in training. I kept telling my running coach, I was losing a lot of weight when I was doing these endurance, sessions, say 5-6 hours. I would just lose like a kilo or two, like right away. And that just meant I didn't really apply the whole, eat protein within half an hour after the session, eat a lot more protein, Mia, as in, eat that red meat, eat whatever, if you need protein shakes, add protein shakes. Because I had 3 little kids. My kids were 2, 3, and 5 at the time. I would come back and they would just be like, hey, Mom, I need you. I want to do this with you. So it's, it's not like I could just walk to my kitchen and, do all of these things. It's quite hard. And anyway, so I noticed I was losing a lot of weight as I was training, and it was, and then I lost a lot of weight after this event. And I said to my run coach, I said, I think I really need to spend a lot more time strength training. And that's when I started working with a girl, Melissa Bachayski, who I knew at Bondi Icebergs, at the gym where I was going, and we set up this plan. And she's not a mountaineer, but she had a good understanding, and we kind of looked at my body. So to step back, it's not only that I needed the mountaineering strength, I was also coming out of 7 years of, having 3 babies. Yeah. So, having these enormous bellies, which I wasn't quite really thinking about, I guess, when I started training. I really needed to strengthen my core. I really needed to strengthen my back, because I kept carrying my kids in these pouches, right? That would, keep you this way mostly, or when they would breastfeed, I was like this way. And there's just so many in
those asymmetries that pop up.
Asymmetries, yes, on my body. And then I noticed I had hip issues, because you carry the kid on one hip, if you notice, right? So it's like 6 years of being maybe stuck in this one position. So anyway, I worked with Mel just to get my body back to kind of what I call the base level. Sure. Just to get the foundation back, right? And we kind of added some fun progressions and fun things, fun goals, like, I asked her, what is the hardest thing that most people cannot maybe do? And she's like, pistol squat. I'm like, done, let's do it. And I'm like, I want to do this. And, I gave myself 10 months. Well, we could do it in 4 months. So
absolutely.
it was like, but it was hard. Like I really had to like focus and but that was the only way to get me to do these harder things and different things for my body, like single leg work. I mean, how boring is that, right?
Oh, it sucks. God, it's yeah.
Right.
Talk about throwing up.
It's so important, right? For runners, for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I am not just going to do the single. I needed a goal. So pistol squat was perfect for that.
Beautiful.
So,
there you go.
it was just like, it's little things like that. So she really helped me. And then she worked with me really well because I had other running goals maybe in place. I worked a little bit more on speed work just to say, how about I work? They said like, if you do speed work, you don't maybe necessarily have to do a lot of gym training because it kind of translates well. At my age, I had to learn that I couldn't really do a lot of speed work.
Right.
I found those limits, right? You can't do speed work 3 times a week. Like you can maybe do it once a week, but not 3 times. So but speed work had helped me get my arms back in motion.
Okay.
So connect my neurological, like I've noticed that I had a delay in certain things, like delayed response with my arms and my legs, it's really hard to explain to people who don't pay attention to these things. I paid like very close attention when I was running. I said, even my stride, my gait wasn't good and I needed to work more on my ankles. That was like my weak link. So I spent more time, skipping the rope.
Okay.
And so it was like little things like that we had kind of like for that year specifically. The second year, I started working with Peter Kirk, who kind of said, Mia, I think your breathing is not good. He was also at the same gym and he just kind of observed me one time. He said, I think you need to like breathe better, from a diaphragm. And I was like, what do you mean? And then he gave me a balloon and then we started doing more breath work and, little stuff like that. It's like very simple stuff. Because what happened is I would be at home with my kids, in this like highly energetic sort of quote unquote stressful environment. And I had only 1 hour to go to the gym. So, you get in the car, you rush to get to the gym, you get to the gym and you're just like frazzled, you're really frazzled.
Yeah.
And, and then I was like, okay, Mel, what are we doing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're just like, I have an hour. I got to get back home because guess what? I was also paying for this session because I had to have a babysitter, watch, look after my kids. It wasn't like, this wasn't a cheap exercise. So I really had to maximize my time. Anyway, so I said, okay, Mel, let me work with Pete a little bit. And Pete then introduced FMS to me, He said, how about we measure everything? I was like, I love this. I was all about numbers. I love numbers. I love patterns. I love numbers. And I love things when they're sort of black and white, but there's depth to it. I like going deep, right? And understanding things. And I was like, FMS, great. So he showed me all of these things that we could measure and do. And, there's still slight imbalance on one side. And you could even tell it. But we corrected all of that in like 2 months. Or maybe 6 weeks. Like it was fantastic. He had me carry this kettlebell for like 10 minutes or something, which was almost like an endurance event. And I was like, this is great. And then he's like, and he noticed that I was like really into it. And then he started introducing kettlebells, and the kettlebell work. And I said, how amazing is this? Like no equipment. I didn't have to come to the gym.
Yeah.
So we would go to this open field, and do this. And it was like meditation for me. 100%. I would be more relaxed. And I was working with, heavy stuff. We were doing the pull-ups. I see your routine. We did all of that. Your current routine that you're doing.
Yeah, I do. It's all good fun.
Oh, it's so amazing and so simple.
So simple.
But it was so good for me. Yeah. And so we worked for 12 months together.
Oh, wow.
And
great.
Yes. So he introduced me to, the basics of snatching, but that was really perfect because I had to layer all of this in before I started working with Derek, because Derek can be a little bit intimidating. He does everything so well and he does it so effortlessly. And I watched some of this. So Pete used to talk about Derek all the time. Well, you should see this guy who does this, and that, and he can do it. So we would get a plan from Derek and we would kind of work on it.
Sure.
And then I said, And I think maybe Derek reached out and said he was interested in Aconcagua climbing it. And so let's connect and see what was going on. And as a runner, I kind of really connected well with Derek. And Derek had proximal hamstring issues when he was in elite, and I had some proximal hamstring injuries, you know, and I kind of needed to stay on top of that and manage that as well as, you know, so it was just a huge volume of strength work that I was doing. But I also knew I was doing some running in the background, just base running to keep myself going, but a lot more really heavy on strength work, like 3 days a week for an hour. It was good. It was really, so good. It was pretty intense, and I felt invincible. I was like, this is, I mean, I never had that strength here, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, look at my arms. Like I'm strong. And I've noticed when I was running, my posture, like
everything just feels better.
I was moving. I could finally move. I was like, this is incredible. And, you know, when your coach says, well, Mia, run from your core. And, you know, I was like, I had no core to run from. Anyway,
that's so great. Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is that you have to be honest with yourself. You know, you have to be honest to say, I don't have these things. I need to get them, you know, and this is what I need to do to bridge that gap, right? I was, you know, coming out of motherhood, and it was great. I love being a mom. I absolutely loved it. But like, I felt like I had no energy. I had no strength. So I knew I needed to build, and I needed to get that back. And doing it in these stages was just perfect for me. And it worked miracles. It worked great. I feel very, very confident now. I feel good. I feel strong. I mean, it's
no
amazing.
Doubt.
When
Absolutely.
you just now pick up an 8 kilo kettlebell and 16, you're like, what was I doing with the 8? I thought that was heavy, but now like it's so light, you know, and it's a great feeling.
Yeah. It's such a cool thing. I love hearing this entire journey of strength work with you. I mean, I've geeked out on FMS for so long. It was my first thing that I really got into in training. And I love it. The same, like you know, said, Mia, just like seeing the numbers, seeing like the red lights. This is what you do well. This is optimal. This is what you need to work on. But what you said there just about self-awareness, of just being aware of what you need to do. You know, it's my favorite, you know, Carl Jung quote is, if you want to change anything, you first have to acknowledge it. It's like, you have to acknowledge that this is what I need to work with and build.
Yes.
But like now it's like, I mean, this is such a cool thing that you're doing, but the whole journey that you've got to be who you are now, of like now in this strength world of snatching a 16, you know, K bell for an hour, you know, anybody who's in this world of kettlebell knows what type of volume that is, you know, during the time. And, you know, Derek is an absolute genius. He could be a little intimidating. I totally understand where you're coming from on that. But no, this whole journey of where you're going on this is such a fascinating thing. Like I said, like going on the expedition is going to be awesome. I'm sure you're going to have a blast and absolutely crush it. But the whole journey of going up to this
journey was everything. And that's really like when people say, so why are you doing this? I wanted to grow as a person, as a mom, as a, you know, I'm now like a mom athlete, I guess, you know, I never really thought about it. And I don't really like labeling myself as much. I love to be a lot of things, right? I want to be able to do, but I love creating opportunities for myself. And I want my kids to know that. I don't want them to be Olympic runners or, you know, like Olympic gymnasts or anything. I want them to be capable, and I want them to feel like they have options in life. Because even if they're training at high level, like my kids put in 11 hours of training in gymnastics right now, and they're very young. I want them to be able to apply maybe that approach to studies when they're teens, or work when they're in their 20s, or I don't know, something else, right? And say, well, like, if I could do that, I can do this. And if I could do this, I can do that. You know, it's not just, I'm just a good runner and I'm just going to be a good runner. I want my kids to have that holistic approach to life, which I still try to nurture, you know, and kind of see, well, so what if I'm just a mom with 3 kids now? that wasn't enough for me. You know,
Right.
I wanted to inspire my kids and show them, because even, you know, when you have kids, like, kids are not interested in what you did like 10 years ago. You know?
Yeah. Your mom
Like,
today. Yeah. What are you doing now?
today, what can you do now, Mom? What are your superpowers? This is all about, like, kids, like, they put you on the spot. And like, I kept thinking about it. Those are like such simple questions, but I kept thinking about it. And my husband is Superman. Like, you know, he's a fast sprinter swimmer. He's great at what he does at work, like exceptional. Everybody wants him, right? And he's a really good dad. Like, drives me crazy because he's the fun dad, and I'm like the mom with rules.
Yeah, we get away with that. Yep.
Oh, and here I am, you know, and I'm like, you just wait. Mom's the endurance queen. Don't worry. You know, in 10 years time, you'll be thanking me later. That's okay. You know, so anyway, it's, yeah, I always think about that. And I kind of felt like I love being a team player. I played team sports, and, you know, my family is a big team. Like, there's 5 of us, and I've lost my dad this year, but he's still with us. And I love that team environment where everyone wants to do more. Yeah. Like, I have a husband who, he won 6 national records in swimming this year and a world record, you know, like, because he says, oh, you inspired me, you know, Mia. And here I am. I'm like 3 years into building my work to get to my world record, right? Yeah. And he's like, just kind of like, he's like, oh yeah, because sprinters do that. That's all they do. You know, they can do it. It's like,
oh yeah, well, their world record takes 10. Yeah, theirs takes 20 seconds. Yeah, yours takes 48 hours. So that's so funny.
This is a continuous debate at home. Is like, how come you need 5 hours to, you know, train and do this like long thing? I'm like, sweetie, this is endurance. You sprint, you're done in 40 minutes. You're great. You know, his like sessions versus my sessions. Yeah. It's not. Yeah, it's great because we all like inspire each other, and it's really good. And I thought, well, and then another thing with little kids, like, you can't just tell them, okay, well, let's go. You go and run, and I'll just sit here and watch you guys. They'll be like, Mom, we don't want to run, you know, or we don't want to go and walk. Like, so you have to do it with them. You actually, if you want them to do something,
you got to be.
You can't tell them. Kids will always say no. Like, no, that's the first reaction. So I don't even say it. I just go, well, who's doing what today? All right, I'm putting my shoes on. Oh, we're putting our shoes on, you know, and it's like, we're all out. So it's kind of like, you have to do it. So it kind of really, again, I had to go like wide and deep, like, right? Like, I had to get back into it. And I wanted to get back into it because I love doing this. Yeah. And then I just, you know, it's kind of like this big, you know, I have the followers now,
your fanship,
my squad now.
Oh my God.
The kids are getting bigger, which is so fun.
That's so great.
I'm still a little bit faster than them, but like, I won't be faster than them for much
that'll
longer.
Change. I'm sure that will change quickly. Yeah. So, Mia, this has been a blast connecting with it. Your energy is so amazing. Like, you're just going to fly up that mountain, I think, from there. This is so awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to have you back on after this to do a conclusion afterwards, and when you have the world record and everything. But no, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So what are the dates again that you're heading out for this? So
I leave on December 7th, and we're going to be acclimatizing and climbing outside the park for about 5 days. Then we go on a big expedition for 3 weeks, just to acclimatize even better. And I'm also thinking about doing a couple of records, short records, while I'm acclimatizing. And then we'll get off. And my big run is scheduled for sometime around January the 7th, 8th, 9th, whenever I get some good weather.
Awesome. So cool. Oh, this is so much fun. I can't wait to see everything that goes on here. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Mia. This is awesome. Listeners, go follow Mia. Check out her stuff. She's awesome. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.